Okay, we will bring this meeting to order for Monday, September 26th, regular council meeting, and begin with a land acknowledgement. The town of Innisfail acknowledges that we are meeting on Treaty 7 territory, the ancestral and traditional territory of the Blackfoot Confederacy, Kainai, Piikani, and Siksika, as well as Tsuut'ina First Nation and Stoney Nakoda First Nation. We acknowledge that this territory is home to the Métis Nation of Alberta Region 3 within the historical Northwest Métis homeland. We acknowledge the many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit who have lived in and cared for these lands for generations. We are grateful for the traditional knowledge keepers and elders who are still with us today and those who have gone before us. We make this acknowledgement as an act of reconciliation and gratitude for those whose territory we reside on. So we will move into 2.1 agenda. Are there any additions or deletions? Director Jenkins? No? Okay, could I please have somebody make a motion to adopt the agenda?
Mayor Barclay will make that motion.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Dunham. All in favor? Great, and we'll move into 3.1, the regular council meeting minutes. And if everyone's fine with that, I'll have somebody make a motion that we adopt these minutes.
I'll move that, Mayor Barclay.
Thank you, Councillor Bates. Any questions, discussion? No, all in favor? And then we'll go to 3.3, the agenda and priorities meeting minutes.
I'll make that motion, Mayor Barclay.
Okay, we have a motion to adopt the minutes for the agenda priorities meeting. Any discussion? All in favor? Okay, carried. Thank you. And we will move into 4.1, presentation from Employment Placement and Support Services. I'd like to welcome Jolene Van Vliet and Natasha King, who are here with us today.
Hello, thank you for the invitation. So I will share with you a little bit about myself. My name is Jolene Van Vliet. I am one of the program coordinators with Employment Placement and Support Services. So I've been with EPSS for over 10 years now, and I have a passion for supporting individuals with disabilities to find and maintain meaningful and valuable work in their communities. So most recently, EPSS was awarded a pilot project called the Employment Partnerships Program. This was a program that was provincially funded with the initiative to educate and share awareness of the benefits and values of hiring people with disabilities. And so that's how some of you may have come to know us, is through that program, where we conducted lots of research and surveys with employers to learn more about their experiences, their perceptions, best practices of hiring people with barriers to employment. So today we are going to talk a little bit about strategies to promote inclusive hiring. But before we get started, I will turn to my colleague to let her introduce herself.
Hi everybody, my name is Natasha King and I'm an employment specialist at EPSS. I had the opportunity to work under our recent Employment Partnerships program. It was a wonderful experience getting to connect with employers to create the relationships that we need desperately for our people with disabilities in our community. It's been very interesting to learn all the things that I got to learn and hear experiences from the employers that I got to connect with. Currently, I'm working on the Opportunities Fund program at EPSS, where I am now working again with clients directly, getting them employed to whatever position of interest that they are interested in. So, yes.
And so for the purpose of today, we're not going to talk specifically about individuals with developmental disabilities, but we're going to talk about marginalized populations, so individuals that are struggling to enter the workforce because they would be considered a minority. So at any time, if you have questions, feel free to put your hand up or to just shout out a comment. We're pretty informal. It'll be a dialogue between us to have that conversation. to share with you a little bit about our understanding and the information that we received through the research that was conducted through the program.
Yes. Awesome. So, great. So, thank you again for having us today. In our presentation, we will cover what inclusive hiring is, what the goal of inclusive hiring is, why inclusive hiring is important, and strategies for accomplishing inclusive hiring. Some of those strategies are taking up a self-inventory, creating inclusive job descriptions, advertising inclusively, creating an inclusive application process, inclusive interviews, and shortlisting.
So what is inclusive hiring? So inclusive hiring is a process that recognizes diversity, embraces a wide range of qualities, and brings perspectives that candidates bring to the organization. So the practice or policy of providing equal access to employment opportunities for people who might otherwise be excluded or marginalized. So this could include people who have a physical disability, living with mental health, members of other minority groups. So depending on the industry, this could even be females who are wanting to enter traditionally male-dominated field, for example, automotive mechanics, right? So it's looking at kind of minority groups and how to get them connected.
So the goal of inclusive hiring is to have workplaces that consist of a variety of different types of people from different backgrounds and experiences. So Black, white, Indigenous, people who have been nurses who are needing a career change, left their job because of mental health issues, concerns, anything, any situation. Some examples of this are through gender, experience, socioeconomic levels, race, religion, sexual orientation, and so on.
So why is inclusive hiring important? Especially when we look at business owners, helping them identify some reasons why they might want to include inclusive hiring in their hiring practices. So, well, we know it's a legal obligation. Employers have a legal obligation to consider every candidate equally. An employer's reputation could be at stake, especially when you look at some organizations that maybe don't have what appears to be a diverse population within their staffing complement, right? You want to make sure that when your customer base is coming to your business or your organization, that they see that you are a representation of people from different backgrounds and different experiences versus one specific target group. And it attracts talent in a competitive market. One of the biggest pieces of feedback that we're getting from employers is that they're struggling to find skilled and experienced staff. And so that their traditional means of marketing for new positions is leaving them with staffing vacancies, and that they're really struggling to find that talent pool that is going to fulfill their staffing needs. And so helping people understand that they can reach very qualified workers through different means than their traditional form of marketing or advertising. Companies who do promote inclusive hiring within their staffing complement are to have what is reported 19% higher revenue. Diverse companies are 1.7 times more likely to be innovative leaders in their markets. 67% of job seekers say diversity is an important factor when considering a company, and 85% of CEOs say that having a diverse workforce improves their bottom lines. One of the things that we're finding through our conversations with employers is it's not just what you can give to a prospective employee in terms of wage and benefits, that employees are looking for more than those traditional factors. They want hybrid work models, to work from home and to have the option to work from an office. They want to know that there's going to be a work-life balance for them, that they can have flexible working hours, and they want to know that they're going to be in a workplace that's going to have a culture that is going to be supportive and respectful of the different beliefs and values that minorities might bring to the workplace.
All right, let's discuss some strategies that promote inclusive hiring. So, self-inventory. Your attitude as a business leader is the cornerstone of creating an effective and inclusive workplace. If you look around your workplace, does the diversity of your team reflect the diversity in society in terms such as gender, race, and age? Are there clear policies about workplace respect and inclusion? Are these policies enforced? For example, whenever I go into a business to access supplies for my hair, I look at the name of the store, but the staff that are providing customer support there. Are these folks going to be able to tell me what shampoo and conditioner will be the best for my hair type? That is all dependent on whether I can identify with someone well enough, with someone who looks like me, to feel comfortable enough to ask them if they have any suggestions for my hair type. That's what you kind of want to encourage in your workplaces, right? A little bit of everybody for everyone.
So looking at websites, right, especially if you're a business owner, having a look at your website and evaluating, is it user-friendly? Is language inclusive? Does it clearly identify your workplace efforts to provide a diverse and inclusive work environment to make sure that you are attracting to the pool of candidates that you want to be interested in working for your company? This could be things like including transcripts and closed captions for video and audio files, alternative text for images and color contrast to make sure that maybe if someone has a visual impairment or a learning disability, that there are other ways for them to access information through your website. This isn't only good for diversity in your candidate for potential employees, this is also good for your customer base, right? Because we know that customers are going to have impacting factors as well. And so if you can make your website more user-friendly to meet the different needs of your customer base, that's going to increase your revenue.
So when creating inclusive job descriptions, you will want to use short sentences and brief paragraphs. Instead of italics or underlining words, use a larger font and bold words you want to highlight for candidates who may have visual problems or dyslexia. Emphasize job responsibilities rather than the requirements, and remove degree requirements where they are not essential. Ask yourself, could someone outside of your organization easily understand what is needed? And sometimes when I'm job searching with some of my clients, one of the difficulties is understanding those basic postings that we find are basic, but to somebody who may have no experience working in that field, is trying to get into an entry-level position, or even someone who has the academics in the background to know all of the skills that are related to the position, sometimes they're like, oh, what's this extra thing? What's this extra thing, right? So try to minimize all the information that you're putting on your ad so that it goes out to everybody and it's understandable to everyone who's reading them.
We've also identified with our conversations with employers who will include a statement in job descriptions that include, the desirable education or experience to add or equivalent beside it. That brings in a new target group because you might have a candidate who is very eager to learn, they're very passionate, they have lots of transferable skills, but if they see that the requirement is, a four-year degree in a specific field, but they have a four-year degree in a different field, it might discourage them from applying. So if you have something that says or equivalent, you're going to get more applicants in there. You'll still have the opportunity to filter through to see if that equivalency is of equal value of what you're looking for, depending on the job opportunity. How to advertise job postings. So many candidates may be seeking employment using print ads, attending job fairs, and conducting searches on social networks, or they may be accessing job ads on their phones. With this in mind, try to use different places for seeking new employees. It opens up the chance of recruiting from a more diverse population. So really having an evaluation of where do you traditionally advertise for your job postings and how could you increase awareness. Again, it's about bringing in a different target group, reaching different people so that you can have a wider selection of candidates who are going to be applying for your positions. So some examples could be online job search engines such as Indeed, Facebook. Facebook has a variety of job search groups. So for example, Central Alberta Jobs is a rather large Facebook group trying to post advertisements on there. Paper copies on bulletin boards, especially when you look at some of the places that job seekers frequent, right? We have Alberta Work Centers where we have lots of job seekers that are going there to get access to computer labs so that they can maybe update their resume, or going to the food bank, right? If you're unemployed, money is tight, so you might be accessing the food bank. The food bank, I mean, it doesn't matter who you are, you're going to need to reach out for some support at times if you are unemployed, right? Looking at radio ads, networking groups, for example, the Autism Society, and community organizations, so working with community organizations like EPSS or Cosmos that have specific employment outcome programs that can help work in partnership with employers to identify what are the needs that employers have to fill. And agencies like that can pre-screen candidates based on what your requirements are for job opportunities and put forth a short list of individuals that might be a good fit for you. And just some questions to remind yourself when you are at that point where you are advertising for job vacancies of where are you placing the ad and how can you increase awareness of the job opportunity. It really is about networking, right? If you are part of any networking group, even if you're part of a bowling league or a church group, putting it in a newsletter, in a bulletin, it's about promoting awareness of job opportunities so that more eyes that have eyes on that job opportunity, the more they're going to talk about it, the more they're going to share it with their friends and their network, the more applicants that you're going to have coming in.
So when it comes to application process, in your recruitment system, check that the messages and instructions displayed throughout the application form filling processes are friendly and inclusive, not overly formal. Design the application process in a simple way that does not confuse or frustrate applicants. Provide applicants with a variety of ways to apply, for example, as we just discussed, online, in person, even email or fax. What barriers might prevent people from successfully applying? Do they have access to internet? Do they have a mobile device that they can easily apply to, right? Some places don't. There's some clients that we've come into contact with that are still writing their resumes out in paper form because they don't have that general access even at the library in their community to access a Word document to type it up. Language, font, lack of computer skills, lack of access to technology, as I just mentioned. Answering some of these questions will assist you with getting on track to create an inclusive application process.
So once you've had an opportunity to get some good resumes in and screen some applicants, moving to interviews of how to make that an inclusive process. Make the logistics simple. So if the interview's in person, making sure that the candidate has directions to the office, where you'll meet them. For example, saying, make sure you check in reception, I'll come pick you up. If the interview is online, giving clear instructions on how to prepare and access the virtual meeting. Interview preparation information, so how to prep for the interview, what types of questions will be asked, especially if you're going to be asking for a presentation or something like that, to make sure that individuals have the opportunity to prepare beforehand. Who they'll meet, so making sure that the candidate has the names and the titles of the person that they're going to meeting, how long they can expect the process to take, and then a final question, if they have any accessible needs that need to be accounted for. This is a really nice process from the interview support side of things, because certainly we work with individuals to help them develop stronger interview skills. Individuals who have this information beforehand go into an interview feeling more confident, right? Their anxiety is lower because they know exactly what to expect. You're going to get a better interview out of that person because you're going to remove that barrier of that anxiety so that they can focus on their skills and their talents that they want to really showcase. And we find this is true regardless if you have, identified disability or not. Interviews can be very challenging for people. What we saw with COVID is many people were employed in the same position, the same industry for many, many, many years. And so now they were looking at career changes or re-entering the workforce after having a elongated layoff. And the idea of going back into the workforce was very intimidating for them because it had been 7 years since they've had an interview. And not only has it been 7 years since they've had an interview, they've now been asked to do an online interview, something that they had never done before. It was all in-person interviews. And so just giving people this information beforehand is going to help them be better prepared so that you can have a better understanding and reflection of who that individual is and the skills and talents they have.
All right, so just as Jolene said, provide interview options, including in-person, video conferencing, or telephone, because you know what, in the world we live in today, everyone's kind of used to also online interviews, interview processes, so having those options available are also still good to have. When inviting the candidate to the interview, clearly state that the company will respect and adhere to accommodation needs. Standardize the interview process by giving the same questions and allowing the same time for each candidate. Consider providing the interview questions ahead of time to ease people's anxiety and give them time to prepare. Speak simply and clearly, provide time for the candidate to reflect and answer. A lot of our clients get a little bit anxious in interview situations as the employer is just whipping through, or the interview is just whipping through the questions that they are being asked. That can be nerve-wracking for anybody, even somebody who has completely prepared for the interview. Sometimes you do need to take a moment just to remember, what was that thing I researched on the company? Or what was that specific experience that I can relate to the conversation that I'm having right now in this interview?
When it comes to shortlisting, designing clear criteria for measuring candidates. Best practice is to have at least 2 people shortlisting to actively challenge each other and any assumptions made by the other. So for example, you could have a woman of childbearing age, right? And maybe she announced that she just got married, and maybe that employer has been burnt a few times where they've trained up some good staff and then they've left to go and be stay-at-home parents, or if they've gone on leave of absences, and so maybe that leaves a bit of a sour taste in the employer's mouth because they want to avoid going down that scenario again. It's important to have someone else there to share your perceptions so that they can challenge that and help you to think of the situation a different way and to see it from a different light, and to work through that together to really identify, are my personal experiences or my personal perceptions preventing me from making a recommendation of hiring someone that is a good candidate for the position that we have offered. Shortlist and interview candidates the same way you would any candidate, based on their abilities and the job requirements. And so that's philosophically what we always encourage employers to do. It is always about hiring the person who meets the requirements and what you are looking for in the job opportunity. It is always about that. It is not about kind of doing a good social deed. It is about, as an employer, what is best for your company, who is going to be the best candidate, but making sure that there is equal opportunity for individuals to have those opportunities to showcase their skills and talents to employers. Consider equivalencies and credentials and experience and focus on transferable skills. This will open up the short list to a broader range of qualified candidates. For example, we had one woman that had been a stay-at-home mom for many, many, many years, and she just wasn't getting any, callbacks, so she would have an interview, but because she had been out of the workforce for such a long time, she felt like she wasn't getting job opportunities. And then we had a really, really amazing employer that sat down with her and said, "Tell me what you do. What does your day look like?" And she said, "Okay, well, I would get up and I would make my kids' beds, and I would tidy the room, and I would do the laundry, and I'd take out the garbage." And he said, "Wow, that sounds exactly what I'm hiring for, because I have a housekeeping position open in one of my hotels. And it sounds like you have a lot of experience with that. And so it was helping identify that there are transferable skills that can be applied to different work environments, but helping, you know, both job seekers and employers see those transferable skills and how those skills can be linked to the desirable and mandatory qualifications that employers have for their job postings.
And finally, providing an offer of employment. Inclusive hiring focuses on ability and finding the best person for their job. When you focus on diversity, your business becomes and stays successful. So, with that said, thank you for taking the time to listen to us today. And we hope you are able to begin and continue your inclusive hires with the information we provided you with today.
Okay, thank you, Jolene and Natasha, and I'll open it up to the floor.
Yeah.
Council, if there's any questions, Councillor Dunham.
Thank you, Mayor Barkley. Natasha, Jolene, thank you so much for coming in today. I had the opportunity to be in the last symposium with you both, and it was a wonderful experience. Last week, we as a council and some of the administration spent our week down in Calgary at the AB Muni Convention, and one of the panel discussions was around diversity, equity, and inclusion in municipalities, which really reflects a lot of what you're doing. And for me, I feel that a community must reflect, an administration, a town administration, or municipality must reflect the entire community. So I think, you know, through inclusive practices that really speaks to that. I know that you spoke a little bit about the economic benefits to businesses, but what about the social and community benefits through inclusive hiring? Can you speak a little bit to that, perhaps?
Should I take that?
Oh, okay.
That's okay. Well, I just have a little bit. I don't have too much, but personally for me, when it comes to the social engagement piece of diversity and inclusion in our communities, I think we are starting to see it a lot more with making connections in our communities, right? So I'm connecting to the city of Red Deer just to let them know that, hey, we do have this employment partnerships program that's actually talking about hiring people with disabilities in your community. Actually, we're just talking about getting inclusion and diversity up and running, not throughout just our community, but through all of the businesses that surround it. So a lot of the times we like to, I guess, take the time to educate where we notice there are not strong evidences of the social aspect being seen in our communities. That's my point of view of that question.
And I'll just add to that too, with some of these surveys that we completed with employers, when we talked about workplace culture of businesses that do support inclusive hiring, we talked about what that looks like and how that compares to their staffing culture prior to hiring someone with a minority population. And so what they've said is they've noticed that staff morale within their staffing complement seemed to have improved. People were working more as a team versus kind of in a competitive manner, that they had a stronger connection with each other to promote a safe work environment, which came back to customers also observing that and saying, wow, I saw that, one of your employees was struggling and another employee rushed in and helped them right away, and that they were there to help me, and I appreciate that you guys have such an inclusive and supportive work environment. We saw from employers that staff attendance also went up, and also those staff retention rates went up. We've come across really, really just amazing stories of how communities have supported inclusive hiring. There was one business that we connected with, and they hired someone who had a hearing impairment, and so they could only do sign language. They couldn't read lips well. And that entire staffing complement got together on the weekend with the support of their employer, and they learned a little bit of sign language, right? So just a few phrases that they could learn, right? Just so that they could say, hi, how are you? So that they can make sure that their teammate felt supportive, right? And so then when a customer saw that and heard that, because it was a small town, she made sure that all her friends knew about that, right? So that they could be going to that business to support them. it's just really amazing to see the social return on investment when we are supporting each other within our communities. There's another story of an individual who was, had a disability, and he was at his work environment, and he loved his work environment. He took that very seriously. It was very important to him. He took a lot of pride in his work. And so on the weekend, when he was walking by his place of employment, which is closed on the weekend, and he saw something that looked kind of unfamiliar, out of character, I guess, for the environment, he made sure that he called his employer right away to say, hey, I saw this. This is what's going on. And yeah, it was worthy of a call from an employee to let their employer know, because it warranted an investigation. But because that employee just had so much value and pride in their work, and they just wanted to make sure that, they got to make sure it was a safe work environment, and they saw something that was not unsafe. So there's lots of good social aspects of diversifying your staffing complement that don't just bring that kind of feel-good feeling. It has an impact on your employees, your customer base, your community.
Councillor Bates?
Yes, your last slide was the happy event of the job offer. Do you help employers too with letting somebody down that doesn't get the job?
So yes, and not to say that we are the ones that make the call to say no, we have found somebody else, but we do end up talking to the client afterwards and just letting them know, like, yeah, it's just the fact that you didn't have all the skills necessary for that position, right? So the best thing for us to do is to look in a different area where they're possibly hiring for the position that you're looking for in that area. Getting let down for any position that you apply for at any point in time can be a little bit disheartening.
Well, it's one of the hardest jobs
It is. It is, and
in the hiring.
It is. I agree, and it's something that we're used to quite a bit. Not as just staff supporting our clients, but we're going through that whole situation with them. But just as many people who turn down positions, there are just as many employers willing to hire anybody who will fit their positions at their business.
Within our organization, we try to form partnerships between employers and job seekers. Our goal is to find a successful match based on the employer's needs and the job seeker's needs. And so not often will our job seekers just go out and hand out resumes to kind of random businesses. It's having conversations with their employment specialist about which businesses are going to be a good fit for them to be a good match. Depending on the needs of the individual, we will go in with the job seeker and we will have conversations with the employers. Our staff are available to attend interviews with our job seekers if they're nervous, or maybe they need some help advocating for their needs, especially if they maybe need any accommodations on the work site. They might be unsure of how to present that to employers, so we can have those conversations. We don't share with employers the specific disability or impairments with the employer. So if an employer calls us and says, what's wrong with Jolene? Like, I know there's something going on there. We can't disclose, that, well, Jolene lives with schizophrenia, right? We don't have that disclosure, but what we can say is, I'm glad that you reached out to us. Can we have a meeting with Jolene? Because Jolene would actually really like to share with you a little bit more about who she is, right? And so we're also available to have those conversations with employers if an employer has an interview with someone and it just wasn't a good fit. They maybe didn't have the right skills, the right experience, or it just wasn't the right candidate. We can certainly be part of those conversations with the employer and the candidate to help the individual understand why they weren't a good fit. Sometimes employers get reluctant to explore the possibility of working with people with disabilities because they're worried about kind of will I say the wrong thing? Is someone going to go and contact labor laws on me or human rights on me? Are they going to say I didn't hire Jolene because she has Down syndrome? That wasn't the case. I need someone to work weekends. Jolene can't, right? So we can also be there to help the job seekers understand you know, the employer was within their rights to say no, right? It's not that they were discriminating against you, they weren't. You know, this is why you weren't the right candidate for this job, but we'll keep exploring for the next one. So it really is about a match of helping the employer understand and the job seeker understand if it is a successful match.
Okay, thank you. How do you connect with the business community?
So usually we just go out and we reach out to any employers that are hiring. Most of the time that's how we like to connect, but we just like to reach out to literally any employer in the area of the client that we're searching for. So for me, currently it's Red Deer, Black Falls, Pinoka, Olds, just because of the program that I sit on. So I'll try to reach out to any employer in regards to whatever position the client is looking into applying for. And I'll try to make a connection with them initially after the client has applied or before the client applies. It depends on what my client wants from me and what they're most comfortable with, because my program comes with a wage subsidy. So usually that comes with a little bit of conversation, some more details on how the wage subsidy works. So that conversation can usually happen before or after. We also have a bank of people that we just like to go out and make aware of our program so that, hey, if we are job searching, if we are looking for somewhere to match somebody, you are somebody that we can reach out to in the future, or can we reach out to you in the future in regards to having somebody apply to one of your positions to see if they have a chance.
So do you reach out through Chambers of Commerce, FCSS as an example?
Yes, Chambers of Commerce, FCSS. There's quite a few community organizations that we are also connected with, such as the Urban Aboriginal Voices Society in Red Deer, and there's a couple of more that I cannot think of at the top of my head.
And are you connecting to organizations in Innisfail?
We connect to the Chamber of Commerce here in Innisfail,
Okay.
And we're also part of the interagency meetings
Okay,
in a few areas so that we can get that information out about our programs quite regularly. Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, so within our organization, we have staff that attend lots of employer networking events like Business After 5 or the Chamber of Commerce, job fairs where we're networking with employers. We also have a business liaison person on staff, and so their role is specifically to reach out to employers, to have conversations with them, to learn about their hiring practices, their hiring needs, to identify if they would benefit from recruitment support, if they would benefit from support to market and advertise job opportunities that they might have, depending on the industry. Some industries require new hires to have exposure courses, like common safety orientation or H2S Alive, working with employers to identify, if that is a barrier to some of your potential candidates who would be a good fit, but they don't have the financial capacity to pay for that training. We can support employers to assist individuals to register for required training that is needed.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Harrison.
Thank you, and a very informative presentation. We've been hearing a lot about the employer side. What about the potential candidates in your program? How do they get registered? Who do they talk to? And how do they get up for consideration for potential employment?
I'll let you take that one first. Yes, please.
So we have a variety of programs available through our organization, and the eligibility for the programs are different. So for example, we have one program that specifically supports individuals with developmental disabilities, so they need more enhanced supports. And then we have another program that ranges just to kind of your average Red Deerian, right? Their barriers are very minimal. Maybe they are a single parent, so they can't work evenings or weekends, or maybe they have a criminal record, which is their barrier. So the programs that we have vary greatly in terms of eligibility based on individual need and their service area of where they reside. But our programs are really easy for individuals to get connected to. We've even had employers that have called us to say, listen, I need to do some layoffs and I want to be able to give my employees some resources that they can access. So how can I get my employees connected to you so that when I say I have to lay you off and I don't know when I can recall you, that they have some supports to get reconnected to the labor market. It's really quite easy. They can call us. they can email us, they can go on our website and they can book an appointment to talk to someone to learn a little bit more about the employment programs that we have and the eligibility factors. Our programs are contract-based through the federal and provincial government, and so they are changing frequently. So that means the programs that we might have in place today might not be the programs that we have in place a year from now. They might be replaced by similar but different programs. So individuals can just give us a call and they basically need to say, hey, I would like some help finding a job. What does that look like? And depending on the needs, we can be very hands-on, where individuals are in our car and we're job searching together, we're dropping resumes off together, we're talking to employers together. We have opportunities to provide on-site job coaching and wage subsidization. So if an employer is interested in maybe hiring someone with a disability, but they are concerned that they don't have the staffing resources to provide the enhanced training and supervision someone might need, we can look at providing a wage subsidy to help offset some of those training costs for employers, or to look at bringing on-site job coaches that can train and support new employees to learn their role so that they're not taking up too much of the staffing resource time. We have lots of follow-ups within our program, so that means once an individual gets a job, we stay connected with them and the employer. So that's where we're having conversations with the employee and the employer to identify how are things going. And if there are maybe some concerns with the employee, we're there to strategize some solutions. You know, for example, the employer might say, oh, I'm feeling really frustrated. Jolene starts at 8 o'clock and she is only here at 8:15. And I've told her shift starts at 8 o'clock and she still shows up at 8:15. I'm feeling frustrated. We've had this conversation. I'm about to fire Jolene. Well, having an employment specialist like Natasha to intervene and to be able to have a conversation with the employer to say, let me share a little bit about Jolene. Jolene has to take the bus, and because of the way that the bus route is scheduled, she can only get here at 8:15. Would it be possible to provide Jolene an accommodation where she'll get here at 8:15? And Jolene said that if you would be willing to make that accommodation, you know, she would be open to working, you know, every Saturday and Sunday, because she would really want to, you know, enter a partnership with the employer. So we always make sure that the individuals that we're working with, we use the word partnership a lot, right? It's not just about what you can get from the employer, it's about what you can give to the employer as well, so that you can form a mutually beneficial partnership, which then we know is going to lead to, you know, stronger staff retention, right? There's value for both parties that are involved.
Thank you.
Councillor Hystad.
Yeah, I just want to say thanks for coming in today. It's good to listen to your presentation, and I think of our EC development committee and other groups in our community that can really help you out, and I appreciate your time. So I just want to say thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, anything else? No? Okay, well, thank you, Jolene and Natasha, for coming.
Thank you.
Appreciate it very much, and
Thank you for having us.
yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll move on to 4.2, and I'll say welcome to Kimberly Worthington from CAPE, Central Alberta Economic Partnership.
Good afternoon, Your
Good
Worship,
afternoon.
Council. Did everybody recover from last week? Lots of meetings and networking and good food too. Okay, so as most of you know, I see a lot of familiar faces here. So as most of you know, I'm Kimberly Worthington from Central Alberta Economic Partnership. I'm so happy to be here, and I love driving into your community with that smile. You're an Innisfail sign, because it just reminds me to relax and smile, and it just creates such a great feeling overall. So CAPE, we're going to go over. I'll ask you to skip to the next slide, please. We're going to look at 5 different things and then we'll move on to questions. But I'm also happy to have a dialogue back and forth if that's what you prefer. I'll briefly touch on Alberta's Regional Economic Development Alliances, and then ourselves as CAPE, our membership levels, the value of municipal membership, and heading out to the gym before we go on to questions. So next, please. The Regional Economic Development Alliances were born in 1998 out of a notion that the city centre, being Red Deer in this case, had an onus or a responsibility to the outlying communities to help them with economic development, because at that time the economic development of those outlying communities often relied on the city of Red Deer, as did the city of Red Deer's economic development, because employees came into the city to work at businesses, and the outlying communities also shopped at those businesses. So the mayor of the day felt that there was an onus or a responsibility to the outlying communities and that they could help drive their economic development as well. So at Alberta municipalities, you would have heard some of the questions being asked to Minister Horner as well as to Minister Furr about the Regional Economic Development Alliances, and for them to get that contract signed off, because it is literally sitting on the desk waiting for October 6th. And the leadership race, we expect to have a new minister. That being said, Nate Horner's messaging was very clear and positive, and in a post-conversation with him at one of the networking opportunities, he echoed the same, and in fact talked to Minister Panda about it, and said, we just have to sign it off. It's not a lot of money, and this is for the 9 regions across the province. Next, please. Oh, sorry, can you go back to the map? So this is an older version of the Cape region. We are growing. We've just welcomed on Starland County and Bighorn County as well, both down in the southeast and the southwest, respectively. And tomorrow morning, I'll actually be doing a similar presentation to Camrose County, who asked us to come up and share what we have to offer. So I do know that the city of Camrose is also a little bit interested in learning more about CAPE, so we'll see how that goes. Next, please. We've also, over the last 5 years, our associate membership has doubled in size and continues to represent some of the projects that we're working on. For example, we have a workforce strategies program, so you see CRT Legal in there, and of course the colleges, and Immigration Care, Core Connection Canada, etc. And we have pretty close relationships with everybody on this screen. Next, please. Okay, so our mandate is multifaceted. However, from the government's perspective, we're here to lead and collaborate business retention and expansion, investment attraction, workforce, cultivate synergies, and act as a conduit to boost local and regional economic development. Next, please. So what do we want to achieve? As a region, on the whole, we really want to be recognized as a collaborative, innovative, and prosperous region. When you think about investment attraction or even businesses expanding, this is really, really key, because investors, people who are going to take the risk to put their money in our region or in our community, they want to ensure stability across the board. What's important to note here in terms of how we do business is that we're not a boots on the ground organization. We work strategically to support, assist, and leverage our member municipalities. And why are we here? Exactly for that reason. So we provide tools and resources, training, and connectivity to help you build better economic development capacity. Next, please. I'm trying to be inclusive there with the French vision and mission. Okay, so this slide tells you a little bit about what our deliverables are to the government of Alberta. You can see COVID-19 is still in there, although we are post-pandemic. There's some after effects or a hangover still going on, which are very clear and obvious. So we have deliverables to the GOA to report to them as we do back to you, our membership. So we are that middleman, in essence, working, trying to connect from above to the local level. Next, please. So down to the nuts and bolts, we run on a pretty tight annual budget. We're a small not-for-profit organization. So over the last 7 years, our budget has been in and around that $500,000, give or take. And our revenue streams are the GOA, our municipal contributions, as well as other grants. So when you look at the financial leverage here, our municipal contributions overall are 4-to-1. I'm not the best mathematician here, so I go with the rough numbers, pardon me. The Innisfail contribution is about 100-to-1, and that's at $4,900 annually. And just in comparison, the City of Red Deer's leverage is 7-to-1. So when folks say it's all about the City of Red Deer, or it's all about the small urbans or the rural communities, this tells a different story. They have bigger capacity, but they're still contributing dollar for dollar on the same heads, same number of heads, to the regional economic collaboration. And that's because they truly believe in what that is. And they get no special treatment. So that's really important to note as well. Next, please. So costs and benefits. The advantages of municipal membership is the ability to help shape the region by serving on working groups and committees. We have some standing committees, and then the working groups are ad hoc. So for example, right now we are doing a new website and some marketing and rebranding. And so we've brought in a number of people, ACTEV practitioners, who are interested in sitting on that ad hoc working group to help advance that and really get the perspective of the entire region. You have the opportunities to network with all levels of government. I will say right now, we are pretty well connected in all 3 provincial parties, and work to leverage those connections in your favor. We talked about the leverage of funding, and to build capacity within your own community. And you come with a louder voice. I think it was the mayor of Rosemary once said it's like speaking through a megaphone, because we're all heard as one. And something that's really important to recognize here is that, like in any collaboration, you know, on today, community A might benefit 70% and community B might benefit 30%. But come tomorrow, it might be the other way around, or different, or all municipalities might benefit equally across the board. So although you may not realize the benefits on that day, as long as they come into the region, like first, as long as investment and those opportunities come to Canada, and then they come to Alberta, and then they come into our region, and then they come into the municipality. That's how it trickles down and through the funnel. Next, please. So building local capacity, you guys have a model of community economic development, and it's my absolute favorite because it's really authentic and it's right on the ground. Your economic development is being built from the ground up with business expansion, succession planning, and opportunities that truly fit the community. Now, with that said, we have a number of programs that will help complement that, and build you up as we go as well. And I'll talk to those in a minute. Next, please. You speak louder. We already talked about that through the megaphone. Next, please. And networking and collaboration. This is a really key piece for CAPE. It's one of the things when we do our surveys that members like the most, because they get to talk to different communities. They get to talk to senior elected officials and federal elected officials at our networking engagements. You know, even at AB municipalities, we were all there, but I don't think I had a chance to to talk to any of you. So it creates a much more intimate, if I can use that word, setting when it's just the few municipalities, and it's a more diverse set of municipalities. While the ladies from EPSS were talking, I was thinking, hey, the region has diversity and we have inclusion because we have our Indigenous nations as well. So I was enjoying playing with some of the parallelisms while they talked. Next, please. Advocacy to upper government. As I mentioned, we have pretty good connections throughout all three parties right now, and the feds as well. And then time for action. We just completed our regional economic growth strategy, and it was approved by the board in May of 2022. I spoke briefly to our rebranding and marketing plan and our website refresh, which I believe is going to be a bit more of a attraction website for business, residents, investment, maybe a little bit of the visitor economy in there as well. We just completed our Central Alberta Tourism Investment Assessment, and looking at the recommendations from that, we've really identified that many of the tourism operators are in early days, you know, save the Innisfail Zoo and that, but many of them don't know how to start to collaborate or how to build out itineraries. So we would love to come in and help them figure that out so that we can keep tourists and visitors in the region for an extra day or two, because as you all know, the longer they stay, the more cash they leave behind, right? Which is new money into our economy. We have our workforce strategies program, and with that, we've developed a regional profile as well as a workforce strategies document, and I think I have it in here somewhere. And we've been working with a number of consultants to advance the workforce strategies. In fact, CRT Legal and Immigration Care have come up with Labor Solutions Canada, and they're attending 2 focused workshops or trade shows that are in Cork and in Dublin for people who want to come to Canada. And so what we are doing is identifying through our member municipalities, we're identifying employers that are looking for staff and gathering those job descriptions so we can truly be a matchmaker, so to speak, over there in Ireland. And then these ladies would love to be able to have like a Zoom meeting the following day, like a really quick turnaround with your employers. So I encourage yourselves as well as your staff to reach out to employers that you know are having troubles hiring. We're also having the Workforce Strategy Summit on March 30th, and I think the EPSS would be a great fit there because we're looking at, you know, how do you integrate those groups, those demographics that are typically not thought of so much in the workforce. And so we'll have a keynote speaker, we'll have a panel, and we're also going to have business-to-business meetings so that businesses can come, employers can come and talk to experts in certain areas based on what they need to know in terms of immigration, hiring newcomers, and making a more diverse workforce. Our investment attraction readiness program is one that I'm really excited about. We just secured funding from CanExport on that, and we have a number of projects underway. One of them that we did with CARES funding a few years ago was these robust community profiles, and they're about 60 or 70 page resource document, and you can clip information out of them as you need. They're not meant as a marketing tool to give to your investors or your businesses, but you take the information that you need out of them. And with the funding, and we only have one spot left, a community could get a full document done up for about 60% of the cost. So it's usually around $8,500 to have something like this done. And then you can update it as well as you go. Other pieces, we're currently looking at a SWOT analysis. We have an event coming up on October 27th in Innisfail. Nope, sorry, in Sylvan Lake. We held our last event in Innisfail. And it is going to validate the findings of the SWOT, the early days SWOT, in terms of our investment readiness. And I can, if you want to know more about that program, I'm happy to share, but I'm also cognizant of the time. So, our community overviews are an ongoing item. We provide business and industry supports, our roving EDO, and we have our Central Alberta Connections Corridor as well. So with the twinning of Highway 11, we're looking at the opportunity to expand that to increase transportation and logistics across Central Alberta. So when we look at upcoming dates, October 17th, we're doing the marketing and branding and community overview revamp discussion. We typically do this every 4 to 5 years with the census coming out. The October 27th date that I spoke to. November 23rd is our fall general meeting. And there are 2 positions available for towns and villages. They're coming up for a 3-year term. So if that's something that as a council you're interested in, then you can have that conversation. We will have our nominations forms and all the other information up online on our website shortly. We'll be talking about supply chain adaptions at that event and doing our elections, and you'll get a CAPE update too. And then December 7th is our orientation, so new director orientation, our organizational meeting where we choose those that will sit on the executive committee as well as on our standing committees. And then March 30th is the Workforce Strategies Summit that I already mentioned. Next, please. So when you think about a regional collaboration, knowing about it isn't enough. You have to apply. Foucault says that knowledge is power. And if you ever want a really dense read, I recommend Foucault. But if you don't go there. Take the Coles Notes version. I believe that applied knowledge is your true power. And being willing to apply it is not enough. You have to do. Now, this is from Bruce Lee. But when you think about participation in a regional collaboration or any membership-driven organization, you only get out of it what you put into it. When my son was little, 7 years ago, he's driving now, he said, well, what does that mean, Mom? And say, well, it's like the bubblegum machine analogy. I'm assuming most of you have kids here, or if not, nieces, nephews and that. You've all walked into the grocery store and somebody's asked you for a toonie or a quarter or a nickel for the bubblegum machine, correct? Okay, so you give them the money, and what do? They put it in the machine, and then what happens? They hope that the machine works. So how do they make the machine work? They turn the handle. They have to participate before they get the reward, right? So that's the same with CAPE. The more you participate, and Mayor Megan Hansen would echo this, the more you participate, the more you put into it, the more you get out of it. So in the end, I really encourage you to participate in CAPE and all that we have to offer. And we really, really appreciate your membership. I see Innisfail as a growing, thriving community. I love coming here. You're on like my top 5 list of places to go. So yeah, I really encourage you to stick around. Next, please. And I'll leave it up to you for some questions. Thank you.
Top 5? No, just kidding.
That's pretty good out of 40 municipalities.
So I'll open it up for questions. Councillor Heistad?
I'm curious, what are those 3 parties? Because I think there's 4 in this province. The 3 provincial parties that you're connecting with.
Well, clearly I'm not connected with the 4th.
Well, I'm just stating,
Yeah.
what I'm saying is who's actually willing to talk to you guys?
Oh yeah,
Engaged.
the Alberta Party, so Barry Morishito,
Yeah,
the UCP, and the NDP.
okay, thanks.
You're welcome.
So, Kimberly, a bit of a selfish question, but without doubt. I'm thinking about results. Like, what has CAPE brought into the region? I see lots of reports and all this kind of stuff, but like, I guess from a business perspective, an economic perspective, what has been brought into the region from Cape and anything specific for Innisfail? You know that we spent probably the last 18 months building out our community dev program. We're well into it now. We have, very strategically looking at business expansion as well as attraction, and it's kind of all being done in-house, of course. Like tell me what Cape can bring to us.
Sure. So at the strategic level, success is different than at the local level, like at the regional level. And in the past, we have farmed out, for lack of a better term, our investment attraction. And we have just brought that back in-house and are kind of figuring out what that looks like. It's one of the key priorities in our regional economic growth strategy that was just adopted in May. So in terms of what businesses we've brought here, I don't have those kind of success stories because we are the organization that helps create the environment and provide tools and resources. I have to say, though, that I'm really very excited that we are working with at least 3-4 site selectors right now to attract global entrepreneurs. When you think about business expansion or business retention even, and the succession rate being quite high of businesses right now, and the need for people to come in and purchase those businesses and take them over is there. So in working with these 4 site selectors, I'm really excited about the possibilities. What we do need in order to achieve success there in that capacity for Innisfail is know what businesses are looking at retiring and closing, what gaps you have, what opportunities are there. And I do believe I did do a bit of a reach out quite a while ago before we went to India to see what those gaps and opportunities are. Through the immigration programs, which is what I'm talking about, it's time consuming on everybody's end. Like it still takes some time, but I'm expecting with one of our site selectors that they're going to help expedite the process. And it's much easier to get folks over here from like the UK. There's a good agreement in place for Mexico as well. And we're also looking at India. So those are the 3 key markets that we're looking at for this right now. And also in 2024, we are bringing a convention called SiteLink. So that will bring us 7 or 8 site selectors from the US, and all the communities will be able to showcase themselves and talk to these site selectors. And have opportunity to promote your opportunities as well. So I guess the other piece is if your tourism operators decide to work with us on building out itineraries, that's where we help as well. So I kind of feel like we're more of like the background work, and we don't get a lot of accolades for that, and success is difficult to define at that level because economic development takes so long unless it's those really quick wins that you've identified in your community economic development strategy.
Yeah. So, do you connect through our organization?
Yeah. So through Todd and
Director Jenkins.
Yeah, and he actually came to the Canada Labour Solutions event the other day as well. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Anything else? No, I guess not. So thank you so much for coming. It's great to see you again. And,
Likewise.
Yeah. Best of luck going forward. And
Thank you.
okay, thank you. Okay, we will move on to 4.3, the CAO report with Director Jenkins.
Thank you, Mayor Barkley. So just a report overviewing CAO Becker's activities the last couple weeks. Innisfail Eagles Golf Tournament, meeting with Red Deer Polytechnic, the Innisfail Energy Hub launch and lunch, as well as attending, along with Mayor Barkley, the electoral boundary presentation. And then the balance of last week at the Alberta Munis Convention. Just a note for calendars that the policing town hall is scheduled for November 15th at 6:30, with location to be determined.
Okay, thank you. Could I please have someone make a motion to accept this report as information? Councillor Wing.
Mayor Barkley, I would make that motion.
Okay, thank you. Does anyone have any comments or questions for Director Jenkins? No? Okay, then all in favor? Okay, carried. And we'll move on to item 4.4, the council action control. And I'll have somebody make a motion to accept this as information, please.
I'll make that motion. I beat you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Heistad. Any questions about any items on the action control? Councillor Harrison?
Thank you, Mayor Barkley. Through to Director Jenkins. It's not on the action control, but can you give us an update on where the Dodds Lake grant or Lake Management Plan grant is?
So we weren't successful in the grant application we submitted last summer. So currently there's no active applications there.
Okay, all in favor of accepting this as information? Okay, carried, thank you. And we will move on to 5.1 with Director Vickers, an update on the second quarter financials.
Thank you, Mayor Barkley. So each year, administration presents quarterly financials for council to review and approve. The financials that are currently being presented are for the second quarter, January 1st to June 30th inclusive. Administration has reviewed the financial information being presented. The actual figures have been compared to the approved budgets for the year, which was approved on December 13th, 2021. And administration believes this to be a true representation of the state of the financials as of June 30th, 2022. So the financials do show an overall revenue of 72% of budgeted compared to a 50% measurable for the second quarter. Upon reviewing 2021 it should be second quarter, this is 1% less than we saw at that time. So some of the revenues to note are business licenses are at 98%, which we do collect this at the beginning of the year, so that's fairly good. There will still we'll see some that trickle in throughout the year, but yeah. Animal licenses is at 74%. Again, this is one that we do primarily collect throughout the year, but we will see some come in throughout the rest of the year. Tax revenue is at 101%, so we do recognize this in the second quarter every year, so we are above that 100% mark, which is good. So for expenses, the financials show an overall expense of 42% compared to a 50% measurable for the second quarter. And this is the same percentage we saw last year, so we're kind of at a good trajectory for year after year. Some of the expenses I listed there, some like salaries is at 45%, which is a pretty good measurable compared to 50%. Yeah, all revenues and expenses are within the budgeted approvals for this quarter. We are still tracking pandemic expenses, but we have not had any others since last quarter. So for this year, it's still just over that $1,000 mark. So I did add a little bit about inflation on here as well. So the rate of consumer inflation continues to rise, reaching 8.1%, which is year to year. So from last June to this June, it's up 8.1%. And there was a 7.7% gain in May. This increase was the largest yearly change since January 1983. So the acceleration in June was mainly due to higher prices for gasoline. However, price increases remained broad-based, with 7 of 8 major components rising by 3% or more. So when they look at they talk about food, they talk about hotels, those are all separated out. Consumers in Alberta paid 54.6% more for natural gas in June, and natural gas prices were pushed higher amid a combination of low supply in Canada, as well as a higher demand in Canada and the United States. Higher global prices associated with supply uncertainty related to Russia's invasion of Ukraine have also contributed upward pressure on natural gas prices in Alberta. And then I added a few pictures, graphs of where the inflation is going for the last couple of years. So one is just like a bar chart or a line chart, and then one is the actual specific percentages for the last 5 years. So if you'd like to go to the capital spreadsheet, we'll just go over some capital projects here. So I was just asked to go over some of these and just say whether an update, whether we're done, or things like that. So the alarm system switchover, we are done. I'm waiting and going to verify that all the invoices have been submitted and paid so far. The CP Rail pedestrian crossing and the Wishel cessation are both completed and waiting on invoicing. SCAB replacement has been completed. Dash camera system has not been completed as of the end of June. So the diesel generator at pump 3 is now completed. The heliport is completed and we're waiting on the final invoicing. The same can be said for the 2022 surface improvements. The end dump trailer replacement is completed. Gravel plow truck has not been taking any steps to purchase that yet this year. Eastgate lift station is not yet finished. The CCTV sewer camera we do have in our possession and we're just waiting on the invoice. 50th Street manhole replacements is still ongoing, as well as Southwest Industrial Design. Gateway Landscaping Phase 2 is now complete. Ball Diamond 7-2 upgrades, the portion that we were completing is now done, and but the project is waiting for the other half to be completed. Ball Diamond 4, 5, and 6 irrigation is complete. Zero turn mower, we have it, we're just waiting to be invoiced. And the arena playground and outdoor rink upgrade are not yet complete and we're waiting on invoices. The library lighting upgrade, as well as the new vinyl flooring in the kitchen in the library LLC room, are both complete. The sound wall replacement, if you can see, is almost completed. Energy conservation measures, the portion that's been completed is the lighting and nothing else, I think, Megan? Yeah. And building condition assessments is in the works. We have yet to be invoiced for them. And Dodds Lake Design, we did not start yet this year. The Hazelwood houses, we did pay a deposit on the 4 houses, and that's what that cost is. Ice resurfacer and the arena dehumidifier, we're just waiting on invoicing. The refrigeration control system upgrade is in progress right now, and the arena condenser is complete. So under the pool, we have the portable freestanding lift, which we do have. We're just waiting on invoicing now. The liquid chlorine production unit is complete. The pool schematic detail and design work is not completed yet. And the wheelchair van, at this point in time, the invoice was paid for the van. We had not yet paid for the wrapping, which is now completed. So you'll see that update in the next report. So if there's any other questions.
Okay, thank you. Could I please have someone make a motion that we approve the second quarter financials?
I'll make that motion. And
Okay, thank you, Councillor Bates, and then we'll open it up for discussion.
I had 2 questions coming out of that last slide. The ball diamond number 7 is considerably over. Is there an explanation?
We'll look further into the billing of it. We have paid for some of the things on behalf of CE, Community Enhancement Facilities, and then they reimburse us, so.
Okay. And then the other one is, I'm surprised, I guess, that we don't have invoicing for the ice resurfacer, because we've had that thing for...
Mayor Barkley through to Councillor Bates. So we've paid it now, just at this point in time. This is as of to the end of June. So it is paid for now, but...
And we did get a grant on that, didn't we? Was it the...
I don't know the dollar figure, but we did get the MCCAC grant for that project.
That's it, thank you.
Councillor Harrison.
Thank you, Mayor Barkley, through to Director Vickers. When are we going to get the actuals, the end of third quarter? We're almost through third quarter. So are we, because I look at some of these numbers here and we're going, if we get too far down the road, how do we get the money spent or reallocated to get work done this year? You know, I look at Dodds Lake Design, $50,000. I don't know what that is, but could that be used somewhere else? And if it can be, when do we sort of go through this and say, hey, we want to reallocate this surplus over here so we can get it done? It's
so
more of
Mayor-
a process question,
Sure,
Director
yeah,
Vickers.
Mayor Barkley through to Councillor Harrison. So the third quarter financials, I'll try to either bring it the last council meeting in October or the first council meeting in November. So it'll be that second Monday in November. And these are capital projects, so they're not really part of that operating. If there's a surplus in the operating, it really doesn't affect the capital. These will carry over until they're completed. So that Dodds Lake design may not be completed this year, but that project, unless council decides otherwise, will stay open as an open project until we complete it. We'll either complete it or cancel it.
Okay, thank you for that explanation. It just seems like there's a lot of projects here that there's a lot of money that could be left over at the end of this fiscal year. And if it doesn't go in, if it's not carried over, you know, you're saying it's been completed, the invoicing's not in yet. I just need to get a feel for what's going to be left at the end of the year. Thank you.
Okay, and I'll ask Director Vickers, might go through to Director Jenkins, but the lighting and the rest of the energy upgrades, are those going to get done this year, do you think?
Yeah, so the arena furnaces should be done in the next little while. The lighting is essentially completed. I think they're still doing a little bit here in the town office. And the contract for the solar is all in play. There's supply issues there, so it may be the winter before they're actually installing those, but yeah.
Okay, thank you. Okay, anything else? Nope. All right, we have a motion to accept this as information. All in favor? Okay, carried. Thank you. And we will move on to 6.1, Community Economic Development Advisory Group appointments with Manager Shaw.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. The report you have before you today is in regards to the membership to the Economic Development Advisory Group. Originally, the bylaw had established a number of public positions for this advisory group, and they had a term limit on each of those positions. So 2 of them are coming up that need to be reappointed, and that's Robert Bilton and Patricia Bourne. And so the report is recommending that those 2 positions or persons be reappointed to the Economic Development Advisory Group for a 2-year term ending October 21st, 2024. So basically, this would just be a continuation of their participation within the committee, and we've come before council so that these positions can be appointed.
Okay, thank you, Manager Shaw. Can I please have someone make that motion?
I'd so move, Mayor Barkley, that council appoints Robert Bilton and Patricia Bourne to the Economic Development Advisory Group for a 2-year term ending October 21, 2024.
Okay, thank you. Any questions, discussion? Councillor Harrison?
Just a question through to delegation. Can you just remind me of who's on the board? The advisory board?
So in addition to these 2 members, we also had Bill Hopper, and recently we had Jim Courtney, who has resigned, so that position is being advertised. So it's basically just to ensure that we have continuity within the board itself.
Yeah, fully understand, and I'm glad that you've went out with an advertisement for this member that's resigning. So thank you, Gordon.
Councillor Bates?
Yeah, I fully support the motion today, but I was just wondering, what do we vision down the road, like a year and a half from now? Are we doing succession planning into this, or, I know it's a new committee, and just wondering if the committee itself has visioned, or us, just curious.
Through the chair to the councillor, as part of the evolution of the committee, you're likely going to see some form of succession planning. But right now, in its earliest phase, it's a matter of getting their feet on the ground before we begin moving into that type of review and determination in terms of who should succeed in which capacity.
Okay, so we have a motion that we appoint Robert Biltman and Patricia Bourne for a 2-year term. All in favor? Okay, carried unanimously. Thank you. And we will move on to 6.2, Remora Ventures proposal with Director Jenkins.
Thank you, Mayor Barkley. Looking to present a proposal for economic and community development support and planning. So we're looking to engage Remora Ventures under the direction of Sean Collins to provide expertise, facilitation, and actionable strategies to explore revenue-generating opportunities related to development, energy, and government funding opportunities for the town. This will include quarterly workshops with administration to identify opportunities and provide input on how to navigate various actions. The idea with the process is to increase internal capacity and understanding and how to execute innovative projects and partnerships. There is potential to engage Remora in additional actions such as supporting in grant application writing, environmental asset brokerage, but this would be done through additional or individual contract agreements that would be presented back to council for consideration in the future. So again, in terms of strategic plan alignment, definitely lines up with numerous council strategies as well as actions within the community ECDEV strategy. So we're looking for council to approve the expenditure to be funded from 2022 contingency.
Okay, thank you, Director Jenkins. Could I please have someone make that motion? Councillor Wing.
Mayor Barkley, I would, as I'm scrolling up here, I would move that council approve retaining Remora Ventures to explore and develop revenue options for the community in the amount of $26,000 to be funded from the 2022 contingency.
Okay, thank you. Any questions, discussions about that?
Sorry, Your Worship. The only question that I have, I understand I have a good understanding of what Remora will, offer us. Is there, when do we know in that agreement that we, kind of that 26,000 is expended and we kind of look at adding to that potentially? Because I have this feeling that we're going to do a lot of good work with Remora Ventures, but it's, the capacity may be done within a, 6-month term or whatever.
I believe Councillor Heistad last week, there was a document kind of outlining
Okay.
some information, and we can get it to you if you haven't seen it.
Yeah, thanks.
So,
And the intention is that would fund essentially a 12-month process for now.
Okay, no,
there's workshops laid out in
Yeah.
that kind
yeah,
of thing.
all right,
so,
thank you.
for sure. Councillor Bates.
Yeah, just have a comment, I think, to administration, that given that we do have a relationship with Sean Collins and VARM, that it's incumbent upon you folks that we do due diligence all the time on this relationship with legal and MGA to make sure there's no conflict of interest. Just want to make that statement. Thank you.
Anything else? No? Okay, all in favor of the motion? Okay, great, carried unanimously. Thank you. And we'll go back to Manager Shaw, 6.3, the Community Economic Development logo.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. As you're well aware, we have been involved in the community economic development process for a while now. Part of the tactics involved in the strategy was to come up with a brand or logo that would help reflect economic development in Innisfail. And so we have worked with Factor 5 Group to be able to envision some form of logo on behalf of the community. We started way back in May or so with a brand guide as a preliminary type of step. We moved forward after that review with another type of interim type step, moving forward in terms of what we had envisioned from an administration standpoint, as well as an advisory group standpoint of the type of image that we wanted to project to the outside world. In September, Factor 5 came back with another iteration for the advisory group to take a look at. Finally, all that distilled down into this, our Innisfail Community Economic Development brand. And our intention is to launch that on Thursday night as a ways to be able to bring it out to the community, bring it out to the business community, bring it out to the world to say, this is Innisfail's economic development. And so we have a motion to you today in terms of accepting the brand that has been provided by Factor 5 and to allow us to be able to go forward in terms of presenting this on Thursday at the event that's planned.
Okay, thank you, Manager Shaw. Just looking at the motion, do you want a motion for council to accept this brand, or just that your report is information, which is what the motion reads?
I think this may be better to have it accepted as a brand on behalf of the advisory group, that this represents Innisfail Community Economic Development.
Okay, so we'll have a motion that council accepts a recommendation from the Community Economic Development Group on the branding for...
On the brand logo
Yes,
as
brand
presented.
logo. Yeah, okay, great. Can I have somebody make that motion, please? Councillor Dunham?
Mayor Barclay, I'd like to make that motion, please.
Okay, thank you. Any comments about the logo? Councillor
Thank you, Mayor Barclay, through to Manager. Yeah, I like the logo, but can you just give us some background on sort of what went into the design and the reason the colors are there? This must mean something. I know other branding places, they look at that kind of thing. So what was the reasoning behind coming up with this brand here? Thank you.
Mayor and Council, previously we had done quite a few iterations of the brand. So at one of our last meetings, we had actually a total of 6 brands that were under consideration. And basically, the advisory group had gone through each of them, determined which they felt was the most appropriate that would help to convey Innisfail and our community economic development. And so the one that you see down here is the one that was selected by the committee and put forward through to Factor 5 to help us ensure that we communicated Innisfail and our community economic development. So you have green there as well as the black and white. We were trying to be able to ensure that if this logo was to be shrunk down, then it would still be very legible to not only in the print medium, but also perhaps if you had like name tags and whatnot. So there was a lot of thought that did go into this, not only from Factor 5, but also from the advisory committee. There was a lot of good feedback from the committee and from administration in terms of looking at what we felt really conveyed the image that we were trying to portray to the outside world.
Well, you came up with a really good logo. It looks good. Thank you.
I think we should just add to Manager Shaw, maybe some of the background around the colors, because we went through a few color iterations too, but you know, the green was really originally to represent maybe like an energy transition, and there was some discussion about also having blue in there because to accommodate, you know, natural gas and hydrogen from natural gas, etc. But I think in the end, Eric's graphic designer decided to just go with these three colors because it shows sharp, and so yeah, there was a lot of discussion that went into it over several months. Councillor Dunham.
Thank you, Mayor Barkley, through to Manager Shaw. Really happy that we have ended up where we are. I think the evolution of where it began to where we have landed shows a level of professionalism that we're really, really trying to speak to with our CED exercise. I think we have positioned ourselves with the brand, and I mean, as we have spoken about, a brand is not just a visual identity. A brand is what is spoken about. We, you know, obviously at AB Muni learned a lot last week through Justin Kingsley about what a brand is, but I think visually we needed to start somewhere. We needed to start off with what our voice is, what our colors are, what we are trying to identify, and I think we've landed somewhere very, very good. I'm excited for Thursday, and I thank you and your team's hard work through all this, because I know that it was a condensed version of a branding exercise, because as Eric had mentioned in one of the meetings, generally branding exercise lasts several months, and we've managed to condense it and come up with something that I think speaks volumes of what our community is doing, and I think it's stunning. So congratulations to everyone. Thank you.
Councillor Bates.
Yeah, I think the logo looks fine. I'm just curious, the two renditions that we have here, like, is that work on certain backgrounds, like one versus the other? Like if you have a white sheet of paper, which would you normally see here, the top one, or? And the black would be intended for what else? Just curious.
Through the chair to Councillor Bates. So the logo is meant to work on a variety of different color of backgrounds. In this particular instance, you show like black and white and green type of thing. But basically it's to ensure that we are conveying a certain image about economic development to the community, to our business community, the Chamber of Commerce, etc.
Well, like I say, I'm just trying to imagine which, it's not important. If on a white surface, then we would see the upper one normally.
Well, I think the
And then any colored surface, you might throw the black background on it, or just
Yeah,
ask.
and I can just add, so the page you're seeing is, there's a couple of page document that goes along with it that talks about fonts that we would use, and, you know, if there's other colors, if you need to use a third color, what that complementary color is, and some of those greater details that go along with it.
Okay, so we have a motion that council will accept the recommendation from the ECDev committee to accept this brand. All in favor? Okay, unanimous. Thank you, Manager Shaw. And we will move on to 7.1, correspondence and information. So just want to point out the event this Sunday down at Centennial Park. You go back to the list again, please, Kara. Thank you. I'll just have somebody make a motion to accept the correspondence as information.
I'd so move, Mayor Barkley, that we accept the correspondence for information.
Okay, thank you. Any questions? No? Okay, all in favor? Okay, carried unanimously. Thank you. And then we'll go to council reports, and we'll start with Councillor Hystad today.
Yeah, thanks, Your Worship, Barclay. Just at Alberta Municipalities Association this past week, and have Age Friendly, I believe it's on Wednesday at noon. And we have our event on Thursday, Power in Place. So those are the things that are coming from the top of my head. I actually really enjoyed our time at Municipalities Association conference with all of you, and we missed Councillor Maceros. So thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Barclay. I too attended the Alberta Municipalities Convention in Calgary for 3 days. Found it quite informative and enlightening. I do have a slide presentation, a slide deck from RD Mug regarding the South Saskatchewan Watershed Basin program and project that they're going to be partnering with Water Sources Limited. And what it's going to help with is actually get a handle on the cumulative effects within the South Saskatchewan watershed, of which the Red Deer River contributes to that watershed. I think it's a very important project, and I know a lot of the members at RD Mug are quite excited about it. It gives us an opportunity to be at the table when it comes to cumulative effects that may affect our river, or the Red Deer River. So stay tuned. That slide deck will come out in the minute, so you'll be circulating. I'm also attending on Thursday, quite a fact-filled day. I'll be attending the ASCHA regional meeting in Sylvan Lake on Thursday morning, and then back right after that for the Power of Place in the afternoon on the 29th. So looking forward to both of those presentations. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you. Councillor Dunham.
Thank you, Mayor Barclay. I as well attended last week the AB Munis Convention in Calgary. Some of the highlights for me were a couple of the breakout sessions that I attended, Council's leadership style and the impact on organization culture and economic environment. And I'd like to just congratulate Mayor Barclay and CEO Becker for a wonderful breakout session. I think it reflected well on our community to have them asked to participate in that. Also attended tips and tools for effective council meeting participation, which learned a few things, which was great. The panel discussion on diversity, equity, and inclusion in municipalities, I very much enjoyed that. I do, however, wish that they had maybe a little bit more diversity on their panel and had a few more people in there, but it was good all around. And one of the highlights for me was Justin Kingsley, who's a creative director, writer, filmmaker, award-winning multimedia storyteller and strategist, and he does a lot of what I used to do, and he is who I wanted to be. But that aside, I think he spoke very well about why brands are important, and that brands not only are something that we try to create, but it is something that we live. And I think that it was really important to hear his words about your brand is what people say about you. And I think the Innisfail brand is growing and becoming something so powerful, and I think we should all be very proud of that. And also, I will be attending the Power of Place on Thursday, and I very much look forward to that because a lot of work has gone into it.
Thank you. Councillor Wing.
Thank you, Mayor Barclay. I attended the Innisfail Public Library Board last Tuesday evening. Library staff have had a very busy summer. Numbers have been high from all perspectives. They're taking a little bit of a breath because since all the fall activities have kicked into gear, not as many people have been crowding into the library, so that's been okay. Budget preparation for the coming year will be beginning in the next few weeks. And Tara has been working with the town administration to select a date for a presentation from the library board. I did have an opportunity to chat informally with Minister McIver in Calgary last week and discuss the need for library funding to be addressed moving forward. As I said to him, 0% is not flat, it's negative, and in this year it's more than negative. So in any event, yeah, I was, Councillor Dunham was like right by my side for the whole 3 days because everything that he did, I did. Good job, good report. I enjoyed the conference. I think there's a great role for Alberta municipalities. I don't think the presentation from the leadership candidates was necessary, but I did very much enjoy hearing from, I love the resolutions, and really enjoyed getting to know people from around the province, so it was a good conference. And then, yes, looking forward to the week ahead, Chamber of Commerce activities, as well as the meeting on Wednesday evening with the regional elected councils, and then the launch of the Power of Place on Thursday, so it's another busy week.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Bates.
Of course, I was at the AB Muni Conference, and this week plan to attend the Central Alberta Communities Networking Function on Wednesday in Red Deer, and the Bauer Place launch Thursday.
Okay, thank you. And of course, last week attended the federal election boundaries hearing in Calgary. That was in the CA report, so don't need to touch on that anymore. Alberta Munis Convention on Saturday morning was at the Larry Reid Memorial Tribute Board unveiling at the arena. It was a really, really nice event. Councillor Dunham was there as well, so thank you for attending that. And then this week, have been invited to an HS gathering in Red Deer and Power of Place on Thursday, as well as looking forward to the regional get-together at Canyon Ski Resort. And Friday have a South Red Deer Regional Wastewater meeting as well. So we will now move into open mic session. Is there anybody, Kara, online that would like to say anything? No? Okay. Any of the staff have anything to add? No? Okay. Just kidding. And we'll go to upcoming events. We'll just have a motion to accept this as information, please.
Mayor Barclay, I'd make that motion.
Thank you, Councillor Dunham. All in favor? Thank you. Unanimous. And we will now have a motion to go in camera.
I'll make a motion to go on camera.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Hystad. All in favor? Great, thank you.